Here I'm going to talk about the APIC-EM Easy QoS app. Easy QoS is actually in beta, so the first thing that you need to do is activate the beta. So for that we need to go to the APIC-EM and we'll go to the settings. We'll go to controller settings and we'll go to Easy QoS beta and enable Easy QoS beta. In my case, I've already enabled Easy QoS. Well, that's why it's showing grayed out. You can go ahead and enable Easy QoS. Once you do that, you will have a new app that's being shown as Easy QoS in this window. So once you've done that, let's go back and just check out the Easy QoS app. Before that, let me just tell you that I've already discovered two devices which I'll be using for this demonstrations. Those are named QoS1 and QoS2, and they're already managed from APIC-EM. So let's go ahead and hit Easy QoS app. In the Easy QoS app, you have something called as a policy scope. A policy scope is nothing but a sort of a grouping of devices which need a similar type of QoS configurations to be applied on them. So you can create multiple scopes based on the needs. Similarly, you have application registries. This is a place where you have grouped applications based on the traffic classes. As you can see that uh, the app by itself has grouped all these multiple applications into particular classes. Like you have 10 apps which are actually already tagged as voice telephony attribute traffic class. You can also go ahead and add your custom applications. You can go ahead and create a custom application based on either URLs or IP, UDP port numbers and stuff. Okay, so you can do that. Policies will come to it when we actually do the demonstrations because it requires scopes to be defined. We also have dynamic QoS with Easy QoS. If enabled, dynamic QoS can dynamically create and turn down QoS policies based on network events. Like when you have a call going on between two endpoints, a particular QoS can be defined, and then it can be turned down when the call gets over. But in this video, we're going to focus more on the static QoS part, so I'm not going to touch upon a dynamic QoS at all. So let's go back to policy scopes and see. So once you log into this policy Easy QoS app, you can see that the network devices are listed in the bottom screen. These are devices which are already discovered by APIC-EM and is managed by APIC-EM. So I have two of these devices. I don't have any scopes, so let's go ahead and create a scope. So I'll call this NARULAN scope. I'll just go and hit enter. Now what happens is once you create a scope, you need to assign associate devices to these scopes. So let's to associate, you just need to click on this device and just drag it over the scope. And once you do that, you can find that on the NARULAN scope, you will have a QoS1 device already added to it. There are a couple of ways to actually add policy scopes. One is through this window and another one is through the device inventory itself. So in the device inventory, if you go to your tagging layout, you can find that there is an option to add a policy tag to a node. So if you go ahead and do this, we go and add a policy tag to say QoS2 device. You can see that I have whatever policy scope I have just created in the Easy QoS app is already listed here. I can go ahead and create a new policy tag. Let me call this NARULAN and create this. And once if I press this, this tag gets associated to that device. So you see that the QoS2 devices now has a policy tag of NARULAN. Let's go back to the Easy QoS app, and now you can see that the policy scope, which was defined on the layout tab in the inventory app, is shown here. And when you click it, you will find that the QoS2 device is associated to it. So let's go ahead and create a new policy. Once you now click policies, you will find that there are multiple scopes. Whatever scopes you have defined gets listed here. So let's go ahead and create a policy for NARULAN. So once you hit create policy, you are presented with a policy dashboard. In this policy dashboard, you already have applications which are categorized into three different buckets, which are business relevant, business irrelevant, and default. This is based on Cisco CVD guidelines, the validated design guidelines. You can either choose to use the CVD guidelines, or you can manipulate this and create your own policy. Say, for example, if I want to move the Cisco IP camera traffic to a default class, I can just simply drag and drop, and it will get assigned to the default class. And similarly, I can pick up a application from business relevant class and move it to business relevant class. And if you feel that you still want to go ahead and do a CVD based CVD based configuration, you can just go and hit reset to CVD, which will reset all these values to based on the CVD guidelines. So I'll just leave it to CVD guidelines for now, and I'm just going to name this policy called as campus LAN. And once you do that, you just need to go and apply the policy. Now, this policy has been applying to the scope, which is narrow LAN, to which one of the devices was associated, which was the QoS1 device. So let's go ahead and push this policy and see what kind of configurations are pushed to the device. So just before that, let me show you the two devices. I have these two devices. These are the QoS and QoS1, and there are actually no QoS configurations present on these devices. As you can see, the only configurations that are present is the IP addressings, and there is literally no other configurations. You will find the similar thing on the other device as well. So you have the IP configurations and no other devices, no other configurations. The only configurations that you find are the SNMP details and the access details, which are used for discovering the devices on the APIC-EM app. So let me go ahead and just push this policy from Easy QoS app. Once you press it, it shows you that there is a total of one device, and the policy is getting applied to that device. So we'll have to give it a couple of minutes for it to go and apply the configurations to the device. So as you can see, it's now configuring the device. You can show that it shows as configuring here, and the tab has turned yellow, which means it is configuring. We'll give it a minute or so that it gets completely applied. Also, what you can do is we can log into our device, have a console connection to device, and you can see that there is a console log message that APIC-EM is actually pushing some configurations to this device. Now you can see that the QoS has been successfully applied, which is indicated by this green arrow here, green tab here. And let's go and look into our device. And you can see that all these QoS configurations was generated based on the policy that we had defined, which was basically the CVD based policy, and it's actually pushed across to these devices. Now it can be multiple devices as long as they are part of that scope. All the QoS policies can be deployed very quickly and very efficiently from this QoS app. Now, one of the things that we need to do is how does the Easy QoS app identifies between a LAN and a WAN interface. So by default, if you had seen that it goes ahead and applies this policy to all the interfaces here. Now, if you want to apply a sort of a hierarchical QoS to one of the interfaces, which is a WAN interface, then we'll have to tell Easy QoS that it is a WAN interface. Now, how do we do that? Let's go ahead and check that out as well. So the other device, what we'll do is we'll consider the interface as a WAN interface. Now I have one interface which is already on this device. Let's treat this as a WAN interface. Now, since it's a Ethernet interface, there's no way Easy QoS can automatically detect that it's a WAN interface. So what we do is we need to put a certain description on the interface, which will be recognized by the Easy QoS app, and then it determines that this is basically a WAN interface and pushes a sort of a WAN policy. So for that, let's go ahead and get into our interface. I'll do description and say MPLS circuit. Sorry. And what we need to do is basically mention WAN, hash WAN hash. And this is what it will basically, when the Easy QoS application will look for to decide whether the interface is a WAN interface or a LAN interface. Now, with the WAN interface, you generally have even a sub-rated bandwidth, right? So now this is a gigabit interface, but it might be possible that you have a sub-rated bandwidth allocated from your service provider. So now to mention that, we need to add for some more commands, which is like say if this link is just 50 megabytes, so we will go and add 50 m hash. Now, when Easy QoS application passes the config, then it will recognize that this is WAN interface because of the WAN tag, and then it will also look at the 50 m bandwidth, and then it will basically provision a hierarchical QoS where the shaping bandwidth will be provisioned for 50 megabytes, and then there will be a child policy which will be your actual QoS policy. Now with that, in the service provider world, you generally have service profiles. Now Easy QoS app has 4 different service profiles, so we need to also tell this Easy QoS app that we need to, what service profile, service policy profile that we need to use. So these are from SPP1 to SPP4, Basically, SPP1 is a 4 class QoS or 5 class QoS, SP2 is 5 class QoS, SPP3 is a 6 class QoS, and so on. So I'll just mention SPP, say 4, and then press hash. Okay. So what you need to do is, since I'm configuring this right now, you need to ensure that this configuration is present uh, um, as part of the inventory um, of APIC-EM, because APIC-EM will spool this device in a continuous manner. Because you have updated the interface, you need to ensure that APIC-EM understands that the change has happened to this interface. So we'll have to give it a minute or so to ensure that the configs gets updated back to the APIC-EM, or what you can do is have a SNMP trap being sent to APIC-EM, so that whenever there's a change in the config, then the config gets immediately updated onto the APIC-EM as well. So we'll just give it a minute or so that the config is updated on the APIC-EM side as well. Or you can actually even read on the discovery and ensure that the updated configs reflect on the APIC-EM side. So, so it does not show any configurational description configuration on this QoS. So we'll have to just wait till it gets repulled. For our sake, what I'll do is I'll read on the discovery. As you can see, the QoS2 device, the inventory collection is in progress. So let's give it a minute or so that it has the updated configuration. It shows managed. And you can see now that the description is also visible in the configurations that's been pulled as the from the APIC-EM as well. So let's go ahead and quickly do our Aqueous provisioning again. We'll go back here. I'll go to WAN, and it's the QoS2 device is already situated to this policy scope. And go to policies, click our WAN, and we'll just create a policy. We'll say campus WAN. What I'll do is I'll leave the classes to its defaults, which is the CBD guidelines, and let's just go ahead and hit apply policy. Again, the Easy QoS app is actually pushing the policies, so let's wait for a few minutes. So you see now the policy has been successfully pushed. So let's go ahead and check whether the Easy QoS app was able to identify that the interface is actually a WAN interface and was able to provision a hierarchical policy based on a 50 megabit bandwidth on a gigabit interface. Sorry. So router, as you can see, the console log shows that there was some configurations that was updated by the APIC-EM. Let's go ahead and quickly check. Yeah, you can see the class maps and policy maps already available. The QoS config has been pushed, which is based on CBD guidelines. So let's quickly check our interfaces. And as you can see, your interfaces, there is a queuing policy which is showing shape 50.0, which was based on our description, right? The description of that interface was meant as WAN 50M, so it understood that it's a WAN interface, and it's the bandwidth of the WAN interface is just 50 megabytes. So let's go ahead and just even check the policy map. And this is the policy map. As you can see, the policy map shows that it's a queuing policy shaped for 50 megabytes. This is the shape average. And then there's a child policy, which will actually be your QoS policies. So now you can see that it's a very intuitive and easy way to use APIC-EM's Easy QoS app to deploy QoS onto your devices. It actually even distinguishes between LAN and WAN interfaces, and it can actually even distinguish what kind of QoS policies are possible on a set of devices. If it's the switches, it will deploy QoS corresponding to switches. If it's routers, all the configurations are taken care by APIC-EM app itself. That's it, and that concludes our video. Thank you.